the Black American community is wrapping up the Essence Fest mess, but as Frankie Beverly said, before I let go, I'm going to have to clear up what actually happened and why this matters, and then I want to give my thoughts. So within this whole Essence Fest controversy, there were three main issues. The first issue was that the structure of the whole festival changed. All of a sudden, they were charging fees for things that used to be free. Then, of course, there was the super lateness and like Lauryn Hill going on at well after midnight, then not even knowing who was performing, and then the production was just not on par. And so I think that between the AI PR post and the CEO's interviews, I think that they addressed it pretty adequately. I think they took responsibility. I do think that it still is unclear on what exactly is the evolution. And they kept saying that Essence is evolving, and I'm still trying to figure out what that is. They were still very vague about that, but to keep it 1,000, most of us don't even care to find out what they'll be evolving to because we won't be there. And then there was the issue of the clean zones and Black American vendors being locked out of economic opportunity. And back in 2024, there was a city council meeting in which locals spoke out. Essence had their consultant there kind of fighting to keep the clean zones. I believe ultimately the clean zones were approved.
And so we have a lot of players that are coming into this situation and making a lot of money. We hear about the $200-something million every year, and that money does not come down to a small business. I, like the rest of you, am confused as well with a lot of this. And with all due respect to Ms. Russell and Ms. Alexis, two people who I have a great relationship with, for the most part, this is foolishness. Essence is a guest in our city. All of the council people up here are married. All of the council people up here are married. There's no way in the world that you will allow me once a year to come into your home and set precedent and rules for what goes on for you, your home, and your children. If I am a small business, let's say we're talking about Bayou Road. If I'm a restaurant and I serve Pepsi products, and Pepsi wants to come into my business where I pay taxes 365 days out of the year and wants to do business with me, that has no right, Essence has no right to tell me what to do with my business. They are overreaching. This has been 30 years. This has been 30 years of Essence, and I understand that for the past few years or so, there's been new ownership and new management. However, the things of this city have not changed for the most part when it comes down to this. Again, we have not seen the small, and when I say we, I mean the small Black and minority businesses have not seen the economic inflow and impact of this money that comes in every year, whether it is Essence, whether it is Super Bowl, Sugar Bowl, or anywhere else. And the information in this clean zone is foolishness. And I'll keep it at that. Thank you, guys. We got work to do.
Now, I don't know if the clean zones are foolish or not because it is a part of a bigger narrative happening around the United States as they expressed in the city council meeting. But I think because Essence's, I guess their proposition of what their brand is, it talks so much about helping the Black community in economic empowerment, and they talk about what they do, this, that, and the third. But regardless of whatever Essence was talking about, the locals came through, spoke up, and they created their own local economy.
This y'all chance, plug yourself in. New Orleans, this y'all chance, plug yourself in. Y'all know come Friday, they bringing all that money to the city for Essence, and you know what I'm saying? Plug yourself in, because a lot of the tourists, they been hitting me up. They've been saying, well, I could go do this. Well, I could go do this. I want to do the native stuff. I want to stop by the native this and that. Bitch, you got your little restaurant, a little truck. You do hair, makeup, lashes, whatever you do. You got a clothing line. You throwing a party. Like, whatever it is you got going on, you know what I'm saying, over Essence weekend, tag that, put it right here in the comments. I don't give a fuck. If it's your baby shower, bitch, tell us about the baby shower. We might pull up. But make sure y'all put them food spots too, because look at me, y'all probably like that bitch just went. But no, like y'all, they really think they about to come out here and be going to Ruby Slipper. No, niece. And if you are going to Essence Festival, make sure you stop by the Basket Ladder and come see me. I got them products on deck. New Orleans, this y'all chance. Plug yourself in. Y'all know.
So I encourage you to go through and take a peek at some of these vendors if you are on Instagram. And to me, this was very much in the Black American tradition. Like, we will get some networking, whatever you need. Let me give you a referral and come refer yourself. And that's how it should be done. And so from there, Essence did give a reply in a very lengthy Instagram post, and one of them was titled "What Comes Next." Oh, and by the way, you can view the post and listen to a reading of their Essence's official response regarding the Essence Fest mess. But in their post, "What Comes Next," they talked about the various initiatives they have, and they said, through initiatives like Community Commerce Collective, we support Black businesses all year long. This year, we brought back the Pipeline Initiative to help local entrepreneurs access vendor opportunities with Essence. But the problem is, local entrepreneurs are not necessarily Black American entrepreneurs. If you're not aware, post Hurricane Katrina, like, New Orleans is being gentrified. The cool towns that Dr. Claude Anderson once spoke about, I mean, that is pretty much, I mean, New Orleans looks totally different. And I know it's different because I know several non-Black Americans from the Bay Area, of various different races, that have moved to New Orleans. So just because it's a local entrepreneur, that does not necessarily mean that it's us. And actually, if you take a chance and go back to the city council meeting from 2024, during that meeting, you had some of those hipsters, if you will, trying to open up like a homosexual owned Airbnb, and it was all over the place. So I do encourage you to go and take a peek at that video from I want to say it was June 6th of 2024. But anyway, they basically just talked about what they're doing, but it really did not address who. And then within this context of Black businesses, like, we assume that Black Americans, that they're talking about Black Americans, or at least we're somewhere included. And I think that kind of leads us into the next issue, and that would be the Africanization of the Essence Festival. And in a broader sense, we really have to talk about the Africanization of Blackness. Are the vendors that they're dealing with, who's included in that Black spot? And I think if you are a millennial, you have witnessed this, where it'll say Black, and then the only melanated people who are included within the Black box are a bunch of Caribbeans and Africans. And then you might see one of us. So the response to the clean zones and Black Americans vendors being locked out of opportunity, like, to me, they evaded that in the post, and they have not given an adequate response. Like, I had did a post on their Instagram asking, how many Black Americans does Essence employ or contract with? Because a lot of their press for the festival, those didn't look like Black Americans to me. And so, this thing of Blackness and, the Africanization of Essence, that was the overall issue of this whole thing. And that, what you've seen with all the think pieces and, justified outrage of seeing yourself Black, Black American erasure, that kind of pee-popped around it, if you will. The Africanization of Essence is not a conspiracy. A couple of years ago, there was a documentary called Time of Essence, in which former employees highlighted these cultural, as a preacher would say, shifts.
When the Dennis family bought the magazine, it was clear they wanted it to be shifting to something new. They wanted to put a bookend to old Essence and really open up the door to what Essence 2.0 would be.
There is no growth and transformation that happens without discomfort. when you start to think about a business that's 55 years old, what has to happen for it to be here another 100 years? People wanted us to look backwards, right? And they wanted
bring
us
back what was.
Bring back what was. And you're not going to survive. You're not going to survive on that.
There was friction around culture, the culture that existed and the culture that wanted to see change happen. Black owned or not, media is not like any other product. Storytelling is not like any other mission. And being the steward of the single brand that has dedicated itself to Black women is a huge, huge responsibility. And it just takes more than money. I left Essence in 2018 feeling very disheartened.
And during the 2025 Essence Festival, or better yet, the actual name is Essence Festival of Culture. So, Essence Fest gives you, your cousins, your aunties, a couple of brothers coming through with their linen suits and their toes out. But the Essence Festival of Culture gives you something else. And then the question is, what culture? And although the Essence brand is associated with Black American heritage, that brand equity is being used to promote a more pan-African agenda. And this was very pronounced in something that they call the Soko Market.
Sometimes we talk about being a Black business and being Black owned. Being Black owned is one thing, but are your products Black made? So Soko in Swahili means market. When you see Soko Marketplace all around here, it's because what we're doing is thinking about how do we bring brands to manufacture their products on the continent.
So, as you just heard, Soko means market in Swahili. And she said that they are concerned about Black-owned products being made by Black people. Now, if you are a millennial like me, you remember when Black is Black American. And I did a whole thing on how Essence Africanizes Black Americans by referring to us as African Americans, and then referring to the sub-Saharan African diaspora as Black people. So the word Africa has now been attached to us, and then the actual Africans don't retain the word Africa. They want to call themselves Black. So the fact that they're centering a marketplace around this word Soko was very interesting to me. And like I had just said, when I first seen the word Soko, I had seen that it meant like an African ape. So now I'm sitting here on this website listening like a marketplace, Swahili. You mean this is a marketplace for apes? So I'm thinking, okay, they think that we as Black Americans, I'm thinking of the Ghanaian, the Nigerian or Ghanaian word for us, akata, in which it means like a wild animal. And then you have this word Soko, which I thought it meant ape. And in some places it does mean ape, but then it also means marketplace. So are we talking about a marketplace for the apes, or is it the cultural trafficking of these animalistic Black Americans culture? Like it's not feeling right to me. But let's continue to listen.
We want to create these products by us, for us, and for the world, but also do so in a way in which we champion values like we see here at Essence.
It's definitely important to align with people that's authentic to you and that's authentic to your brand as well.
The fact that Soko products are made by Kenyan artisans, we are circulating the dollar globally.
Whoa. So she prefaced this by saying that they want Black products made by Black people. Then she used the very Black American term, for us, by us, and then says that the Soko Marketplace features items made by Kenyan artisans. So do you understand what I'm saying now as far as this thing with Black the word black and black people, which used to mean black American. Then she switched it and was like Kenyan. Nowhere in her little spiel did she say the word African. I really am going to continue to impress this. This is very, very important. Nowhere in the presentation did she refer to actual Africans as Africans. She referred to Africa as the continent. She goes on to say, for us, by us, but once again, who is us? Who is she talking about? And then she was very specific. It's made by Kenyan artisans. Well, isn't Africa the quote unquote continent consisting of 54 countries? Why did you pick Kenya? And then I had to remember, oh yeah, the CEO of Essence, I think it's the magazine, is Caroline Wanga, who goes by Wanga Woman. And then it just got worse. And once again, I had actually started on this video a couple of weeks ago. Today is July 31st. And in the past 2 weeks, I had got more information. So perhaps it was the good Lord giving me pause to do the video. Not that I had hesitation, but I had some other stuff to do. And now I had the complete information that I needed.
I had talked with my dad about being excited about going because I knew my Kenyan heritage. I'd known it from the beginning. My dad told me all those stories, right? It was undisrupted by the slave trade on the eastern coast. I was excited to go to Ghana because the remnants on the coast there of the transatlantic slave trade were something I didn't see in Kenya, and I was excited to see that. So I was talking to him about that, and he paused and he said, well, there was another slave trade that happened on the eastern coast of Africa that doesn't have a lot of history behind it because it took slaves to Asia, but they weren't allowed to procreate, and so it didn't last as long. He said, so our heritage did interact with slavery in Kenya. And I was like, well, Dad, you said it wasn't disrupted. And he says, well, the Wangas did what they had to do to survive, which meant participate in the enslavement of other Kenyans.
Wow. So there you have it. You have the CEO of Essence, Caroline Wanga, who, by the way, on her Instagram doesn't even use her government name. She uses Wanga Woman as her handle, showing that she is very proud of her lineage. You have the CEO of Essence. She is a co-conspirator in the cultural trafficking of an American Negro heritage brand. And so the fact that the Soko Market being a Swahili word for market, and then you have the other meaning of Soko, which means African ape, and the artisans of the Soko Market, as far as who the products are made by, are these Kenyan people, and Carolyn Wanga is Kenyan. You put it all together, I get a descendant of slave owners creating a market to traffic the culture of who they consider to be apes. And of course, I think about that word akata. But it only continued to get worse. Something about that word, I was just like, ugh, I don't know. This Soko thing, I felt like there was a little bit more to it. So then I started to search for Soko and then slave market, and lo and behold, there it is. You can see here, it says Soko, or Soko la Watumwa, is a Swahili word for market and is often used in reference to the former slave market in Zanzibar City in Tanzania. Zanzibar was a major hub for the East African slave trade for centuries. So there you have it. Carolyn Wanga, an East African descendant of slave traders. Now, she could have used any word that she wanted to. Seeing that Essence was a Black American brand, and even if they are trying to evolve it into some sort of a quote-unquote Pan-African brand, why would you be so insensitive to name the market at the center of the festival where trade and commerce is happening in a very Black American city of New Orleans? Why would you use a name associated with slave market? not only is it culturally insensitive, but it's also very bold. And then once again, Caroline Wanga leads with her last name, Wanga woman, showing that she is very proud of that. And then there's also the piece that since they want to commandeer Black, they're only choosing these two countries to work with, Nigeria and Kenya. They could have picked any name. So this is what we are dealing with. So if you felt some way about this Essence thing, and I think why it has just exploded the way it has, and now it's continued to go on into like a boycott of African businesses, this is what we could not quite manifest into words, but we were feeling something more sinister. You're dealing with the descendants of human traffickers, the people who sold other melanated people, and have the audacity to come and take and purchase an American Negro heritage brand, erase the people from the brand who created the word, who Black is in reference to them, then commandeer Black, erase the Black people from the word Black, and then replace it with Caribbeans, primarily Africans, thus commandeering the word Black. And then when they refer to you, they brand you like slave owners with that word African American that none of us have. And I want you, just when you take some time, go back to the Soko Market promo. You're going to see and listen to it. She did not say African, not African American. She's referring to the continent as the continent, not as Africa. When she said for us, by us, that's Black American. When she said things that are made by Black people, or no, purchased by Black, no, sold by Black people and made by Black people, she could have said made by African people for African people. Because if you're a millennial, you remember a time when everybody was, I'm an African in America and we're the African people. And now all of a sudden, these Africans want to be the Black people and then call us the African American. Thus, the whole concept of Africanness stays with us, and they take all of the cultural capital in the word Black, which is why the Liberian guy, Richelieu purchased the Essence Festival so that they can take over the equity, the cultural influence, the socio-political capital in the image and likeness of Blackness and sub-Saharanize it. I'm going to call it cultural trafficking, and I'm also going to call it the sub-Saharanization of Blackness. And so, the Africanization is real. It is not a joke. People are not xenophobic. People see what they see. And that then takes us to one portion of the interview. Now, Richelieu, the CEO of Essence Ventures, and Essence Ventures owns the Essence magazine and there are other things associated with the brand. He did an interview on The Breakfast Club. He also did another interview at some radio station. I'm sorry, I can't recall the name. I don't have the note. I didn't note that down, but some local radio station in New Orleans, of which he said that when you get to New Orleans, this is Wakanda.
Say this. When you get on the plane coming to Essence Festival, you're getting on the spaceship going to Wakanda. Mm-hmm. When you land at that airport, you've landed in Wakanda. Mm-hmm. I don't care who you are.
And he went on to say that you're treated like kings and queens, as if we were supposed to be flattered. But the truth is, the people who treat us like kings and queens are the local Black Americans. It's not Essence. Like, he's really feeding off of what the locals do and trying to attribute that to Essence brands, when the reality is that New Orleans is a major international tourist destination. Their economy is really rooted in tourism at this point. I mean, oil too, but for the local people, it's tourism. But the Wakanda reference really freaked me out. Now, just for full disclosure, I did not go see the Black Panther movie. I kind of boycotted it, but from what I heard, when I looked online, it says that Wakanda is a fictional, technologically advanced African nation. It's situated in sub-Saharan Africa. And what I recall from people saying is that the people who lived in Wakanda, the Africans, looked down on, the Black Americans. And the debate was going on, Black Americans was clapping back like Killmonger was right. And then I think in the whole synopsis of the story, if I recall, didn't the Black Panther, who was African, ended up working with the white guy who was working with the CIA to neutralize the American Negroes in Oakland? So the Wakanda reference was super strange to me. And then it went all over the place when I started going down the rabbit hole. Like, why would your, desire or your, what do I want to say, your idea of elevation, why does it come from the imagination of a white man? Like, white people created the Black Panther series, I think. I could be wrong. But why is Wakanda, your idea of elevation and, greatness, when we, the American Negroes, we have so much great culture in our past, present, and what we're dreaming of in the future? Like, to me, it was really just disrespectful. New Orleans has so much culture, and aesthetically, like, Wakanda was not cute to me. When I would see the clips, like, Wakanda, from an architectural standpoint, Philadelphia, Chicago, San Francisco, LA, our cities will rival that any day. And then when I go to Wakanda, I'm going on a little tangent here, but the women, like, I don't want to look like that. So, anyway, his interviews was just completely confirming this idea of the Africanization of Wakanda. And I have to pop my collar one time because I was one of the first people to call it out. There is a now viral video from one of the local news stations, and they were talking about ticket sales were down. Well, when I came in on the video, it was only like 2,000 people, and it was about 40 comments, and only 2 of us mentioned the Africans. One person was actually a local from New Orleans, and they were talking about how they were treated last year and that people are not fooling with it. And then I mentioned the Africanization of the brand because in one of my first posts on this channel, I had mentioned, Essence Festival. And, I think last year, I want to say, is that the year Janelle Monáe, flashed her boobs out to the public? And it just was so embarrassing. And the Essence brand, it means a lot to a lot of us, and it prompted me to do a video just honing in on the memory of what Essence was. So anyway, just stay tuned with your girl. I do be going on tangents. But going back to the Africanization of Essence in Wakanda, he did another interview following one at the local radio station at the Breakfast Club. And on the Breakfast Club is when he told me everything I needed to know.
How did you feel when they turned the conversation because of Target and Caroline, your CEO's past involvement with Target? They turned it into a Black American versus Black African conversation, and that whole thing exploded. Of Essence is losing its focus on Black Americans.
And so I have to pause this. Okay, so that person who was just speaking, the female, her name is Lauren La Rosa. And her brand is Black Girl. Oh, no, not Black. It's Brown Girl something. So she leads with brown. So I don't know where she's from, but she has a Spanish surname. So perhaps she's of some Hispanic origin. But I want you to hone in on how she led into the question. It was very misleading, this Black American versus Black African. First of all, we're not in a rivalry with anyone. We are second to none. Nextly, there is no Black African. They're just Africans. Black is not synonymous with sub-Saharan African diasporans. Black is Black American only. But the actual issue is really Black American erasure. But I feel like she's trying to sensationalize some sort of war. We're not at war with anyone. All Black Americans were saying is that our heritage is being erased from a festival that centers us.
I mean, those are one of the, I mean, I'd love to hear how you guys think about that, but that's one of those ones that I struggle with understanding intellectually, right?
Now, there goes that intellectually thing. It's kind of like what they always say, you're not smart, you guys are ignorant. Or in a now viral video on a Houston news station, a woman named Nanette, a Nigerian, said that we're intellectually lazy. So he is implying that his intellect is superior to ours in that he cannot understand what we have said, and we made it very, very plain.
For a host of reasons. Let's just talk about the actual facts, right? So we had, 40 plus acts and performers, right? We had one Jamaican act, performer Buju, and we had one African performer, Davido, right? That to me doesn't say that we're losing our center, right?
Well, what he omitted is that you had a lot of African and Caribbean speakers. And I would be very curious to see how many speakers they had in their other activities at the festival that were Black Americans. Of course, because Black Americans are known globally and probably interdimensionally for our talent in singing. We are the bait that you use to bring people to the festival. Now let's hear him talk about the center.
Right. We remain extremely centered on African American culture, right? And on Black women. That's our center. That doesn't mean we can't expand out from our center.
Now, you just heard him. He distinguished between African American culture and Black women. So to him, Black women are descendants of the sub-Saharan African diaspora. So Black Americans, he does not consider you as Black. He called you an African-American. Do you see how that was? So now, instead of saying African diaspora, we become Africanized. And then the diaspora gets to walk away with Blackness. This is how he sees us. And this is also what you see on his website. He distinguishes us as African Americans and then distinguishes the African diaspora as Black.
All it means is we can't lose our center. So if you were on the ground, if you were there, you see that center is very much there, right? You go into the convention center, right? You look at what happened on the stages. You look at what happened. If you were there, you know that we're still centered, right? But if you were there, you also know that we're growing and that we're broadening, because everybody has to grow and broaden. Otherwise, you won't be around, right? There's also sort of the philosophical approaches to this is I view myself as Black. I've benefited from being Black, and I have also lost from being Black. When I walk in the room, what people see, if they don't know me, when I walk in a room, I walk down the street, they see a Black man, right?
Now, we have to break that down. He says he sees himself as Black. Well, so did Rachel Dolezal, the white woman who was going around pretending to be Black. So did the New York mayoral candidate, the Mondani guy. He actually identified as Black and seen himself as Black to get educational opportunity. We have several instances of red dot Hindus seeing themselves as Black if it will help them get through the door. So just because you see yourself as Black conveniently doesn't mean that you are Black. The next thing he said, that when people see him, they will know that they'll think that he is Black until they get to know him. That means once he gets to know people, he pulls off the Black mask and lets them know that he's Liberian, you see. So I want you to hear that. Seeing myself as Black and identifying, there's a lot of people cosplaying our culture who see themselves as Black temporarily. But are you Black? When you immigrated to this country, you did not come from a country called Black.
My life has been dedicated to uplifting Black. I've focused it on the economics on there.
Now, I got to pause it again. Bear with me. Now, he has focused on uplifting Black because he does not want to uplift Liberia. Because if he leads with Africa in Liberia, but Liberia specifically, then we have to talk about his immigrant lineage. We have to talk about the Liberian Civil War, which caused his family to leave Liberia. He would then have to talk about his African heritage and the benefits that he got from his grandmother, who was in Sierra Leone selling shea butter, which is how he got the plug to source raw materials and then access foreign labor. Now, I don't know what his circumstances was coming here, if he came over as a refugee, but there are Liberian refugees who get refugee money and refugee protected status. Also, Liberia was getting money from U.S. aid, money that Black Americans would never get. So he wants to hold on to Black and elevate Black, because as we were blackened meaning our history hidden from us and stolen from us, he wants to hide his history. That is why he wants to hold on to Black and make you African. Because if we become the Africans, now we're associated with the quote unquote African leaders who just came to meet with President Donald Trump and begging for resources and asking for peace. So I want you going forward to listen to this, and you have to start qualifying Blackness. When they say Black, you need to start asking a follow-up. What do you mean? What is your definition of Black? Because he just Africanized us, and he just commandeered Black for himself and his identity. But he was very specific. He said, once they, if they don't know me, they'll think I'm Black. So that means he knows he's something else. He also, when he mentioned the different artists singing, he mentioned a Jamaican and an African. He didn't call them a Black. So he understands that Black is Black American. He is very sure of that.
The economic side of Black, because that's what I know how to do. That's what I'm skilled at. The thing that I've learned from that is we're much better off when we're focused on our commonalities and we're building on those commonalities. As I said earlier, I grew up, King, Garvey, Lumumba, right? That the thinking around, hey, we have a much better chance of developing and growing our communities when we find the commonalities and the alignments, and we're working towards shared goals and shared objectives. When we don't.
The problem is that those people that he listed have a Pan-African bend, primarily Marcus Garvey, MLK, which is the reason why they quote the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. so much, is because he had socialist underpinnings. And towards the end of his life, he was talking about democratic socialism. And a lot of these Pan-Africans have this socialist / communist leaning. And so in that paradigm, there's something called equity. So basically, whatever was yours is now mine, and we share it. I take as much as your stuff that you earned and created until I can get to where you are. And so this issue of Pan-Africanism, we will explore that on this channel. So make sure that you subscribe. But yeah, another thing is that commonality and shared this, that, and the other, this Pan-African mythos has already been debunked. The African leaders who just met with President Donald Trump did not mention anything about Black people. They came on behalf of their countries. They didn't mention anything about Black Americans and what we can do to make, or what they can do to make our lives better. They came for trade and commerce. Just like he said that his skill is in the economic aspects of trade and commerce. So if you want to, you can listen to this interview again, but this whole thing on Blackness and the commandeering of Black and then Africanizing us, and this is a much deeper topic. So it's time for us to qualify Blackness. Like, the identity of Black has always been Black Americans. Liberians do not identify to Jamaicans as Black, and vice versa. Essence wants to take over Black by redefining it to mean sub-Saharan African diasporans, and then associate the new Black with everything but Black Americans. And this is what erasure looks like. They are phasing us out by omission, yet using our name, image, and likeness at the same time. in essence, labels the real Black people as African Americans, thus Africanizing us and then leaving us with the African label that they do not want to claim. And so if you do not believe me, we are on the Essence page right now. And the Essence brands, one of them is Essence Communications. And within this, it says it's dedicated to Black women and inspires a global audience. And then when it talks about Essence Magazine, it says that it is a premier lifestyle, fashion, and beauty magazine for African American women. So they have just globalized Blackness. Blackness is not even like an American thing with them. You are now Africanized. And this is not a joke. This is not anything to take lightly. And then on the festival, they say that this is the African American musical talent, X, Y, and Z. And then essence.com, it's the ultimate destination for African Americans. So these are actually their money makers, the magazine, the festival, and the website. Essence Communications is another entity that they use to transfer the equity that has been accrued from the magazine, the festival, and then the website onto the global Black thing. And it says, actually, the last sentence, it says, Essence is committed to telling her stories in her voice and in her image. And she has become the most trusted confidant and home for global Black culture. And I'm going to repeat it again. It's going to be repetitive. We, the American Negroes, have been Africanized. They don't want to take African. We are now African Americans to them, and they want to take Black. This is not a drill. This is not a game. This is very serious. And so, but they want to use the products that Black Americans use and then take it to invest in the people from around the world. And so we're going to take a look at the Essence Ventures segment of the essence.com website. And on the website, they're saying what their offering is. And they say they are the #1 destination for the AA being short for African American, or an acronym for African American. And they access to 1.4 trillion in AA buying power, African American buying power, aka Black American buying power. And so this is why, in my opinion, the brand was purchased. And this is the bigger conversation happening with the Essence Fest mess. And then we can go, this is the Essence Media Kit. And throughout the Media Kit, you're just going to see images of prominent Black people, aka Black Americans. There is no global sub-Saharan African diasporan presence for the Essence Media Kit. Now, did this say, a minute. Now, the Media Kit, I'm going to assume, is for the magazine. And so they're talking about but then it says Black. So they're playing this game, but I am paying attention. You can go down. And this is why this was purchased. And so Essence wants to be the gatekeepers, because actually I think it's one of the last legacy publications. And so we're going to zoom in and look at the rates. This is what they want. They want to get the advertising dollars. So as gatekeepers to the Black American experience, advertisers or big brands will have to come to them and pay them money. So one of these, video package, $143,000+ So this is why they want to be the gatekeeper. This is the cash cow. We are the cash cow. We are consumers. And I believe that he thought that, well, we don't have any place to go and he can just own our cultural capital and just all the equity stored up in it, just continue to take those dollars and profits to someone else. Thanks for making it to this part in the video. You're listening to the Glamorous Podcast. And so I just want to give my final overall point, takeaway, and kind of wrap this up. For me personally, like, I didn't care who owns Essence. I mean, I didn't care. People are trying to malign the Black American community and say that we hate Africans and it's because he's African. And actually, that's intellectually lazy. When we are very clear, the issue is Black American culture being erased from a festival that historically has centered Black American culture. It's the only major one that I know of this scale that was attached to a legacy publication. And so you're erasing us from it and then adding people. So to reiterate, for me, it's not necessarily about, not even necessarily, I wouldn't have cared who owned it if they would have kept the brand. Obviously, I would prefer, as much people would, you want your own people to have that. That's a deep thing, to own your own cultural institutions and run it. There's just an extra special something that I think we add to it when we own our stuff. But if someone else has it and they keep the identity of it and get out the way, cool. Like, for example, there is an African person that owns Red Lobster. And I doubt if he's going to have a bunch of West African print and jollof rice bowls and whatever other things that they eat with the West African brand. So the ownership is not the issue. I mean, similarly, you have Koreans and Chinese people owning businesses in our community and things that cater to Black people that we support. And yeah, we have our own issues with them that definitely need to be addressed. But the difference between those people is they're not trying to steal our identity. Yes, they're exploiting us, but they're not trying to steal our identity. What is going on with this whole thing is very sinister. There's a spiritual element to it. And my whole issue, why I decided to pick up this series and click around and make videos, is because it's identity theft. There is deception, and the owner, Richelieu, in my opinion, and the brands are seeking to enslave the Black American identity into perpetuity. And I really have a problem with that. So for me, that's my tension point. Other takeaways that I take from this moment is that for me, it has been a full circle moment. Like I said, a year ago, I had made a post and it had been on my mind. And I don't think people was trying to really feel what I was saying, but it's glad to see that my labor has not been in vain. I've been talking about this Black American erasure for a very long time. And so it was very healing. It was very inspirational to see my people again. It's crazy. It's like we've been erased and phased out of media. Like, every time you see a melanated face now, it's somebody foreign when they're speaking for us. And it was just so refreshing to see people with their think pieces. It was so refreshing to see their outrage, justifiably so, however they wanted to say it. Okay. Like, I've been loving the last couple of weeks. It's been so beautiful. It's so nice to see us. And perhaps because I'm in the Bay Area, I'm surrounded by a bunch of foreigners. But however we wanted to say it was just nice to see us expressing ourselves and coming together. And also, it was nice to see the other content creators that I didn't know existed. Like, this have had everybody coming out the woodwork. People who had dormant channels, they was like mine, was like, we got wait a minute. And for the record, let the record reflect. And people on social media, sharing what they want to say, just everyday people. This was a great moment in history. And I think we are witnessing the moment when things start to turn around. I think for us, we're being tested. It's just a side note. Before whatever inheritance we get, if we can't rightly divide who's in our group and who's not in our group, who is worthy to stand next to us and who's not, then we're not going to be worthy of our inheritance. It's going to be held back. So I think us coming together as a people exclusively, in centering ourselves, it's not about, I don't like you. It's really not about you. All we're saying is you're not me. That's it. And so anyway, thank you for listening. Make sure to leave me a comment and tell me what you think. What are your takeaways from this? Do you feel exhausted? Do you feel inspired? Let a sister know. And if you have not subscribed, go ahead, make yourself comfortable. Now, I will say there's a lot of fellas on the channel. Hello, hi. I will be going into some of my girly content, but you are free to stick around and support me anyway. I will be keeping this content or this subject, around because it kind of is on my spirit, it's in my heart, and it's something that needs to be discussed. I think I have a different point of view. So thank you once again. Make sure to share the video and tell me what you think.